Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Prastaya Bhutale Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Swamini Chanamani Namaste Saraswati Devi Lord of Anipacharani Nivase Shasanyavadi Pachakya De Satani Om Aganatamilandasya Janatana Salakaya Chaksu Samilitanjena Tasmai Sri Gurave Namaha Sri Chaitanya Manobhistam Stapitam Jena Bhutale Sayam Upakadamayam Tadati Sa Pandantikam Vanchakalpa Triyubhascha Kripa Sindhu Bhaivacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namah. Hare Krishna. Today we will begin or complete Act 3 of this great drama. The drama of revealing rasas or relationships with Krishna, but there's also more than that. And this act will cover the entirety of chapter 83. Yesterday in two acts we completed the 82nd chapter. And what could one say about the 82nd chapter? Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, his the Rath-yatra ceremony was dictated in the mood of the final part of the 82nd chapter, where Krishna interacts with the gopis, and Krishna is a bit shy because he hasn't seen them for so long, and he couldn't, even though he had so many good reasons for doing it, and his sajjana, his relatives, Kamsa had to be killed, because if actually one reads the prior chapters, when Akrura, I think it's in 36 of the 10th canto, came to see, to bring Krishna Balaram back, the way he describes, as our Acharyas comment, the way Akrura describes, and I think it's in maybe 37 or 38, how he describes the condition of Nanda Maharaj. He describes how Kamsa was torturing Vasudeva. Kamsa literally was torturing him. He had him in prison. So Akrura described that to Nanda Maharaj. And Nanda Maharaj and Vasudeva were brothers, cousin brothers. And he had to give permission, practically speaking, for Krishna and Balaram to go to Mathura. When the gopis found out, they were in shock. They were in shock, and they thought that they don't know what they're doing for allowing Krishna to go. Don't they know that he won't come back? And He's killing him, Nanda giving permission is killing himself and all the residents of Vrindavan. This was the inconceivable intensity of their relationship, of their love that the residents of Vrindavan have for Krishna. So we heard about the meeting at Kurukshetra between Nanda Maharaj and the Brijbasis and Krishna, and especially in the first act. We heard about Yashoda Maya's meeting with Krishna and Balaram, but especially with Krishna. And we heard about Rohini and Devaki's reaction to seeing the intensity, the incredible, inconceivable intensity of the relationship between Yashoda Maya and Krishna, and how they reacted to it, and how Mother Yashoda reacted to their reaction. She was oblivious of it. She was drowning, swimming, being tumulted here and there by the waves of her ecstasy in relationship to Krishna. And then, if that wasn't intense enough, then Krishna meets the gopis. And to sum up their mood of separation was incredible, inconceivable, because they were missing Krishna, they were missing Krishna, they were missing Krishna. The blinking of their eyelids caused them to miss Krishna. And then suddenly they were with Krishna. But there was something that didn't sprout the same rasa as their relationship that they had with Krishna in Braj, in Vrindavan. So Krishna was there, Srimati Radharani was there, the gopis were there, but there was no Vrindavan. So therefore, in their ecstasies, even when Krishna invited them, according to Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, that there's no need for us to be separate anymore. You just come to Dwarka and we'll enjoy our pastimes there. And they said, no. Our home, our place is Vrindavan. We miss seeing you with the peacock feather atop your head, your flute. You're walking without shoes in the dust of Vrindavan. So we beg you to come, to return to Vrindavan. And again, this was the mood in which Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was in when he was in Jagannath Puri. This was the mood, especially of Mahaprabhu and Rath-yatra. And we heard of the anger of the gopis, subtle, but it was man, it wasn't anger, it was based on prema bhakti. We heard of their entreaty to Krishna. Please, please, come back to Vrindavan. And then we enter into the third act. Now, how can there be a third act? I was thinking, now what? There's an expression in English, when something fantastic happens, that's a hard act to follow, which means, what do you do next? Because usually things go like this. When you're creating a drama, it goes like this, you go like this. But what happens if you go like this right in the very beginning? And there in the beginning, then everything else that follows that is going to seem not very significant. So that was the fear I had when I was preparing for this class and looking at my notes. And I wasn't disappointed by the incredible foresight and spiritual potency of what Srila Vyasadeva and Sukadeva Goswami present in this class. Act. It's a class act. It's more slang, sorry. Because what's going to be explained here, because what do you think? Here's the highest thing. This is the thing that everyone is longing for. All the followers of Mahaprabhu, practically speaking, are longing to attain some form of deep, ecstatic relationship with Krishna. So what's the next thing that can be explained? Well, there's going to be many, many hints on how to attain it. And spoken of all places, well, there's two things, two scenes, one could say, in this. By Krishna's interacting with Maharaj Yudhisthira and other relatives, and then Krishna's interacting with his queens. Now, you won't expect Braja Bhakti to come from that, but it does. Before we begin, we'll just go on to catch up on the rasas that have been speaking up the relationships with Krishna as Kurukshetra. That's a little slower, but it's already, you already put it there, so let's put it back. The first two that we saw were the kings who loved Krishna and was so much enamored, attracted to him, because by his presence, the world and their desires were fulfilled. And then the Yadus, who had still a more intimate relationship with Krishna, because they knew he was the Supreme Lord, just like the kings knew that he was the Supreme Lord, but they also were so intimate with the Supreme Lord that they could speak with him casually, they can eat with him, they can rest with him. So difference in rasa, difference in relationship. And then there was Rohini's relationship, which was different from Devaki's relationship with Krishna, because she had been to Braj and she saw the unique way that the Brijbasis related to Krishna, very different from the other mothers of Krishna who were in Dwarka. And then there was Devaki, who had her own relationship with Krishna. Krishna was her son. She was convinced Krishna was her son. She saw him, and she had her reverence because she saw Krishna being born in a forearm form. So she knew that Krishna was the Supreme Personality of Godhead, that he was Lord Vishnu. But yet she also knew that he was her son. So one mood of hers was completely maternal, and the other one, she couldn't forget that Krishna was the Lord. So sometimes she was afraid in front of him and reverential. When Krishna rescued them after killing Vasudeva and Devaki, after having killed Kamsa, when Krishna finally released them from prison, she didn't know whether she should bow down to him or embrace him. And she got stuck, and she couldn't move until Krishna expanded his Yogamaya because he wanted the embrace. But yet she had those two sides. But then there was Yashoda Devi, who looked in Krishna's mouth and saw the universe, but she thought, it didn't mean anything to her. It was quickly covered by the depth, the intensity of her loving relationship with Krishna, because her love overpowered that. Nothing can increase the love of the Brijbasis for Krishna. Nothing, even knowledge of his position, can decrease their love for him. They're in a special category. Mother Yashoda was in a different category. And so much filled those two, Devaki and Rohini, with awe. And then Uddhava was there too. So we've included Uddhava because he was assisting Krishna to meet the gopis, because he was aware of the intensity of the gopis' relationship with him. And then there was the gopis themselves, who just wanted to bring Krishna back to Vrindavan. and enjoy their pastimes with him there when he's a cowherd boy. So we're up to 7, and we shall continue. And of course, these can be subdivided still further and further. There were so many gopis, and they all had their individual relationship with Krishna and the different moods of their relationship. In fact, we have read somewhere in Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur's commentary on the 10th canto that each individual, raise your hand if you're not an individual. Well, yeah, it's like asking someone to raise their hand if they don't exist. We're all individuals. From here, I can see it clearly. Even those who are in saffron, they're all dressed individually. The ladies dressed individually. Everyone's dressed individually. Faces are different. Even identical twins are individuals. So Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur says being an individual means that you have a quality that no one else has. That's what it means to be an individual. There's something distinct and separate from you, from everyone else. And to offer that to Krishna on the spiritual level is the perfection of that individuality. And Krishna's nature, he's so infinite because there's an infinite number of souls, and each of them are practically infinite number of souls, innumerable, asankhya. And each one of those has an individual characteristic to offer to Krishna, and Krishna has the capacity to accept all those offerings. No one else can accept those offerings because he's infinite. He has unlimited ability to accept the offering of the unlimited individual souls, which has so much philosophical implication in the sense that Krishna, being infinite, he's always fully satisfied, but yet you have something. Each one of us have something that no one else can offer him. So he's eager for that. Philosophically consequential, how he can be fully satisfied, but yet missing us, as we found, we heard last year in the Brihad Bhagavatamrita. What do you think about that? I mean, think about it first before. Anyone like to say what they think about that? After they've thought about that? As I said, Cynthia, it's inconceivable. But I would add to the one word to that, inconceivably wonderful. So now on with Act 3. Now there's 2 parts of this. There's Krishna meets Yudhisthira and his relatives. And then Draupadi. Anyway, we'll just go through it when we go through it. So first we will speak about the next day or sometime in the future after Krishna meets the gopis, because the Kurus and Yudhisthira had come to Kurukshetra, and Yudhisthira was so intimate, or Krishna was so intimate with Yudhisthira, but yet he didn't have time to meet them. So our acharyas don't say when exactly he and the other Kurus met Krishna, but it was after he met the gopis, and Nanda Maharaj, because that was, the attraction of their love for Krishna was so unlimited, he met with them first. So soon after, perhaps I think of it as the next day, because Krishna, after all, he danced with the gopis that night, after meeting them and satisfied them. Then he met Yudhisthira. Now, I won't read from the Bhagavatam on this, but I will read from the first verse. There's only 5 verses that deal with Yudhisthira's meeting and the Kurus meeting with Krishna. But the first one I'll read from the Bhagavatam. And then after that, I'll read from Krishna book. Jiva Goswami says, after speaking to the gopis, which we heard yesterday, Krishna inquired from Yudhisthira about how was their life going, since their fate until that time had been unclear because they were in such a difficult position. As we heard about Kunti Devi, they were unprotected, and the natural protectors were supposed to be Dhritarashtra, and they were intent. He and Duryodhana and the other 99 sons of Dhritarashtra were intent on killing the Pandavas. That meant killing Kunti too. Just imagine how much brotherly hatred must have been there for them to gift them as a holiday home, but it was made out of lac, out of a flammable substance, and then set it on fire, trying to kill them. So they were in a very dangerous position always. So Krishna, although knowing everything, being Savagya, he met with them, and he asked them how they were doing, despite him not having the ability to know everything. So Srila Sukadeva Goswami said, "Thus Lord Krishna, the spiritual master of the gopis, and the very purpose of their life, showed them his mercy." That we heard yesterday. He then met with Yudhisthira and all his other relatives, the relative Kurus, and inquired from them about their welfare. Just imagine when we go to see Krishna, we are, of course, like this. But just try to understand how the Kurus, Yudhisthira and the other Kurus must have felt. And they knew he was the Supreme Lord, like the Yadus knew that he was the Supreme Lord. And as we've been hearing in Jagtrini Mataji's Brihad Bhagavatamrita, there's a different progression in the bhakti. Just imagine if Krishna said, "Well, how are you?" He expressed concern about you. And was your situation favorable? Was your situation auspicious? So he inquired from these relatives, Yudhisthira and the Kurus, and inquired from them about their welfare. Now we'll read from the Krishna book, which will describe the next 4 verses. Lord Krishna welcomed King Yudhisthira and the other relatives who had come to Kurukshetra to see him. He first of all inquired from them whether their situation was auspicious. They were in Krishna's presence, and he asked them about their own situation. Prabhupada continues in the Krishna book. Actually, there's so many instructions in here. Actually, there is no question of ill fortune for anyone who sees the lotus feet of Lord Krishna. Yet, when Lord Krishna, as a matter of etiquette, almost formality, because after all, he knows everything. As a matter of etiquette, he inquired from King Yudhisthira about his welfare. He was concerned. Despite knowing everything, the king became very happy by such a reception because it evoked the understanding about their relationship. And he addressed the Lord thus as follows: "My dear Lord Krishna, great personalities and devotees in full Krishna consciousness, they always think of your lotus feet, first instruction. This is what it means to be a great devotee in Krishna consciousness. To constantly think, meditate on, remember Krishna's lotus feet. And thus they remain fully satisfied. The result of that constant meditation on Krishna's lotus feet with oneself as one servant of those feet and thus they remain fully satisfied. So one can also understand that dissatisfaction comes from not being a great devotee. Dissatisfaction comes from not constantly meditating on Krishna's lotus feet and myself as a servant of Krishna and tasting the nectar of Krishna's lotus feet. There's some ahankara in me. That means thinking not as Krishna as the center, but thinking of myself as the center. In other words, selfishness. So Yudhisthira, and through, or Prabhupada through Yudhisthira, Yudhisthira through Prabhupada, replies that. And they remain fully satisfied. Well, what's going to fully satisfy us, soul? How does meditating on lotus feet of Krishna satisfy us? Because that meditation induces drinking the nectar of transcendental bliss, because one cannot do that unless it's devotionally motivated, lovingly motivated. I want to serve you, attracted to that. So in that one sentence, in one sense, all the practices of Krishna consciousness are offered to us. In that one sentence, oops, and what we should do and where we should direct our life. The nectar which they constantly drink, meaning the devotees, these are Yudhisthira's words from Krishna book. The nectar of which they constantly drink, constantly absorbed in devotional service, serving Krishna's lotus feet. Otherwise, we're drinking shunya, janiya shunya, bishakaino, supporting the concept of myself as something or another and becoming somebody, some mental concoction of who I am and being absorbed in that further and further, which produces poison and confusion and unhappiness and lamentation. The nectar which they constantly drink, sometimes, these are from the great devotees, comes out of their mouths. They're drinking nectar and comes out of their mouths and is sprinkled on others. What is that sprinkling? The narration that comes out of their mouth as the narration of your transcendental activities. From their ears to their heart, to their mouths, and to the ears of someone else. This nectar coming from the mouth of a devotee is so powerful that if one is fortunate enough to have the opportunity to drink it, he is immediately freed from the continuous journey of birth and death. So in one sense, we're getting a hint here. This element, beginning introductory part of this chapter, which is only 5 verses long, is preparing us for Draupadi's asking the queens, which will come up very soon, about how they married Krishna, because it's going to be Krishna Katha, preparing us for the importance of Krishna Katha coming from the mouth of Sukadeva Goswami, coming from the mouth of Draupadi and these queens. Our material existence, there's more. Our material existence is caused by our forgetfulness of your personality, O Krishna. He's a person, and that means he has a personality, and he has different moods. He's an individual, but a supreme individual, a supremely sweet and attractive individual. And forgetfulness of our relationship with him is forgetfulness of his personality, Yudhisthira says. But fortunately, so amidst the darkness of misfortune is fortune. But fortunately, the darkness of forgetfulness is immediately dissipated, removed, where if one is privileged enough to hear about your glories. Yudhisthira has said to Krishna. Therefore, my dear Lord, if hearing about your glory, you've asked about my welfare, but if hearing your glories is enough to remove, to dissipate, to destroy all inauspiciousness, which is caused by me being in the material world, therefore, my dear Lord, where is the possibility of ill fortune for one who is constantly engaged in hearing your glorious activities? And since we are fully surrendered unto you, there's more instruction about how to move forward and have no other shelter than your lotus feet. We are always confident of our good fortune. This is the power of Sharanagati, of surrender. And this explains Mahaprabhu's first verse, Successivum, of the 7 perfections that come, that right after cleansing of the heart, Ceto Darpana Marajanam, next is Bhava Devagni Nivapanam, that the miseries of material existence are removed. And then Sriya Karaiva Chandrika, and immediately the chanting brings forward, the chanter is receiving the moonbeams of Krishna's mercy in the form of the holy names, which causes the lotus of his good fortune to blossom. So I ask, why doesn't this happen so easily for me? It's the second part of the 7 opulences, Chaito Darpana Marjanam Bhava Maha, and the third part, Sriya Karaiva. And the answer is given here, it's surrender. Because it's not if you chant Hare Krishna, it's not that all your stocks will go up and all your material difficulties will and your children will go to the best universities and get best jobs and best degrees and have the most beautiful of all grandchildren, which sometimes I see does happen. But it's the surrender. It's the surrender which is based on the trust that I am in Krishna's hands. Trusting. Just imagine how my life would change if I truly trusted by the fact that I'm making my attempts in devotional service and hearing and chanting. They're only faulty attempts. And it's not even pure. It's not only completely focused with everything else rejected, but I'm making my attempt, but yet trusting that somehow or another Krishna is taking care of me. That type of surrender, even in the greatest of calamities, one will view those calamities as Krishna, Tatayano Kampamsu Sumitshamano. These are given by Krishna to detach me to this. I once, in a Chinese city called, it's not coming to me right now, but it will. What's near Shanghai where all the, not Hangzhou, but where the animations come from. Anyway, it's not them. But when I went there were a group of elderly ladies only who were chanting. And there was one lady who, as soon as she started chanting, got cancer. So I couldn't avoid asking her, you chanted, and instead of getting transcendental bliss, you got cancer. Instead of seeing Krishna, you got cancer. Tell me honestly, how did you deal with that? And she answered, I was so attached, it was Krishna's mercy. And I thought, and the other ladies were like that also. And I was thinking I was going there to teach them something, but actually Krishna had arranged that they were teaching me. I said, how many of you have been to Vrindavana? And all of them raised their hand. I said, what was it like for you? And one said, I was so happy, but when I was leaving, I was crying so much. Another said, I just hope I can die in Vrindavana. So then I knew what I would do when I was there. I just told them pastimes of Krishna as best as I could. And one lady who was married to a non-devotee, she said, one devotee, my husband got a job and we had to move to another part of the city. And where we used to live, I was surrounded by devotees. But there were no devotees there. So I prayed to Krishna, I know there are devotees here, please reveal them to me. And she then pointed to the lady on this side, here's one, and here, and they pointed on the here's another one, and we get together every night and chant. This is Sharanagati. And yeah, what else can one say about that? Since we are fully surrendered unto you and have no other shelter than your lotus feet, we are always confident. I'll read that again. Since we are fully surrendered unto you and have no other shelter than your lotus feet, we are always confident of our good fortune, like the difference between a mouse carried in the jaws of the cat and the kitten being carried in the jaws of the cat. One is terrified and the other one feels fully secure. My dear Lord, Yudhisthira says, you are the ocean of unlimited knowledge and transcendental bliss. Out of your independence only, you have descended to this earth by the use of your own internal potency. You are not here trapped by your karma like the other conditioned souls. You have descended by your own internal potency, Yogamaya, to establish the Vedic principles of life. You have appeared just like an ordinary human being. And since you are the Supreme Person, there cannot be any ill luck, any bad luck for one who is fully surrendered unto you. Now, for a few minutes, turn to someone and discuss what we have just heard in the first 4 verses, Just turn to someone nearby and discuss what we have just heard, what your thoughts on this are, and just for a short time, discuss, please. Five minutes only. Such a heavy topic. Such a consequential topic. But it's the introduction to what will come next. So important, so descriptive, so instructive. For me, hearing evokes humiliation and humility. Maybe humility, but at least humiliation. Another 2.5 minutes.
Where are we in the Bhagavatam, please?
83rd chapter. We read this was the first 4 verses, but I read those 3. I read the first verse, and I'll read the 5th verse from the Bhagavatam, and that was from the Krishna book, where Prabhupada describes those. Happy to see you.
How is everything? Stressful, no?
Well, but yet I'm trusting. I'm trying to surrender and trust.
It's your subject at the moment.
Yes, I'm caught by having to speak about it. And you? I heard you. I guess let me say that I heard how wonderful your class was this morning.
Yeah, today the energy is back. Yesterday I was very tired during the morning. But I'm all right. I get up early for chanting rounds. That helps a lot for me.
From me, because I was thinking last night, how could you follow what we talked about yesterday, which was the gopis meeting Krishna at Kurukshetra? And then when I read it this morning, then I understood what was going on, and it's how to achieve. Yeah, I spoke about that at the beginning.
And thank you a million times for this. I glued it to my jacket. The hot pack.
Oh yes.
Yeah, very, very helpful. And the bread.
Yes.
Very helpful.
The
Thank
two
you.
together.
Yeah. I let you.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna. Oh Prabhu, Prabhu. Haribol. Hare Krishna. Now we're ready to hear and apply. First, I'll read the 5th verse. Please listen. This is from the Bhagavatam again. And then we'll hear from that, after that, Srila Jiva Goswami's comment, which instructs us exactly what we should do next at this moment. The great sage Sukadev Goswami said, this is the 5th verse. As Yudhisthira and the others were thus praising Lord Krishna, being in his presence, Krishna inquiring about them, and then hearing about him. The great sage Sukadev Goswami said, as Yudhisthira and the others were thus praising Lord Krishna, the crest jewel of all sublimely glorified personalities, the women of the Andaka and Kaurava clans, the royalty, met with one another, as Krishna was discussing with Yudhisthira, and they began discussing topics about Govinda, topics that are sung throughout the 3 worlds. Please listen, Sukadev Goswami says, as I relate these to you. Srila Jiva Goswami comments, just as Yudhisthira and his people praised Krishna, other people also praised Krishna. Similarly, the wives of the Yadavas, so everyone there, Krishna was the center of everyone there. The wives of the Yadavas and Kauravas gathered together and spoke about Krishna. I will tell you these words, which were filled with mercy, because it's Krishna Katha. Please listen with complete faith. That is Jiva Goswami's advice to us here. But we're not going to do this the usual way. There's something that we're going to read from here, but I don't want to read the whole thing myself because that may be a little more hard to listen attentively. Is there anyone else? Is there anyone here who would like to read different parts of it? Anyone? I did this last time too. Oh, these two over here, they can do it because these are the queens who are going to speak. Okay, you two can come up. We'll have to separate you for a moment. You can come on this side and you can come on this side. How amazing that these two never expected. Betye, Mataji. Draupadi said, Sri Draupadi said, O Vidabhi, who is Vidabhi? Rukmini, Bhadra and Jambavati. O Koshala, Satyabhama and Kalindi. O Saibya, Rohini, Lakshmana, and other wives of Lord Krishna. Please tell me how the Supreme Lord Achyuta, imitating the ways of this world by his mystic powers, came to marry each of you. Probably we better not to have it up here now. So, O Vidabhi, how did Lord Krishna come to marry you?
Sri Rukmini said, when all the kings held their bows at the ready, to assure that I would be presented to Shishupal, he who puts the dust of his feet on the heads of invincible warriors, took me from their midst as a lion forcibly takes his prey from the midst of goats and sheep. May I always be allowed to worship those feet of Lord Krishna, the abode of Goddess Shri.
Now, I will be the commentator here, and I'll read Srila Jiva Goswami's comment. Let his feet be the object of my worship. Rukmini prays in this way, indicating that she is not qualified to be his servant. How do I then deserve to be his wife? Considering my condition, she's thinking, how could I even be his servant? What to speak of his wife? She prays only to be his servant and serve his Lord at his feet. She speaks out of great devotion. Now, this is the intensity of her desire. Her marriage to Krishna is described in 3 chapters earlier. But here's when she writes a letter to Krishna to protect her and kidnap her. This is one of the verses she says. And this answers the question, one part of the question of how can I desire higher things? My mind gets disturbed so easily, this problem, that problem, that problem. She says, O lotus-eyed one, great souls like Lord Shiva, this is in her letter to Krishna, hanker to bathe in the dust of your lotus feet, and by doing so destroy their ignorance, which means the coverings over their real identity as Krishna's servant. And if I cannot obtain your mercy, I shall simply give up my life, which will have become weak from my severe penances that I will perform. Then, after hundreds of lifetimes of endeavor, I may obtain your mercy. So what focus, determination, what intensity of desire is required, and not the kind of eagerness that pushes me into the spiritual world because I want to be there, because I think I want to be there, because I could take a selfie and tell all my people on my list that, guess who's here in Goloka Vrindavan? Which may have a hint of selfishness in it and self-centeredness. None of that exists.
Srila Prabhupada said, my father, his heart tormented by his brother's death, accused Krishna of killing him. To remove the stain on his reputation, the Lord defeated the king of bears and took back the Shamantaka jewel, which he then returned to my father. Fearing the consequences of his offense, my father offered me to the Lord, even though I had already been promised to others.
Here is Srila Jiva Goswami's comment. Now, Satyabhama's relationship with Krishna, maybe we can put up the relationship, go back to the relationships. Her relationship with Krishna, even though she's a queen of Krishna, is different from the others. Draupadi also had a different relationship, as Jagtrini Mataji was describing earlier, last night. Rukmini, Jambavati, and the others, they all have a relationship with Krishna. You'll hear how they just want to serve his lotus feet. And Satyabhama, our acharyas say, she has a sense of equality with Krishna, and therefore it's more intimate. So her relationship is different from all the other queens. So Jiva Goswami says, he presents one thing, that she was given to Krishna because of her father. What was her father's name? Satyajit. Because of his fear of having created an offense and suffering. This is not a proper reason to give something to Krishna. He gave me, though he had also promised me to others. But then he gave me to the Supreme Lord, and the Sanskrit word is Prabhavi. And the response to that doubt is given by Srila Jiva Goswami. Actually, everything already belongs to Krishna. It is proper to give everything to him. Giving to others is wrong. Or my father gave me to Krishna out of his fear of Krishna so he could protect himself. Her father's offense was thus removed. Like Rukmini, who prays to be a servant, most of the queens had prominent dasya, servitude attitude, but Satyabhama had prominent sakya because of her strong feelings as a lover. To give to anyone else is wrong, Srila Jiva Goswami says. Next.
Sri Jambavati said, unaware that Lord Krishna was none other than his own master and worshipable deity, the husband of goddess Sita, my father fought with him for 27 days. When my father finally came to his senses and recognized the Lord, he took hold of his feet and presented him with both me and the Shamantaka jewel as tokens of his reverence. I am simply the Lord's maidservant.
Guess we should turn off their mobile phone. Someone should. Srila Jiva Goswami comments, my actual father did not know at all that Krishna was the Lord because he was intent on fighting with Krishna. He had that spirit. In order to negate the impossibility that a bear was her father, because we hear that Jambavan was a bear, and someone even asked Prabhupada that odd question, that if Jambavan was a bear, his daughter may have also been and Krishna married a bear? And Prabhupada, and here's the answer to that by Jiva Goswami. In order to negate the impossibility that a bear was her father, and Krishna married a bear, you like that one? My father took a suitable form at will, since he was actually the son of a demigod. My father did not know that the person he was fighting was also the husband of Sita. And he was a devotee of Ram and participated in the destruction of Lanka and the killing of Ravana, Dambavati. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur says, recognizing that he was the husband of Sita, that this Krishna is Sita's husband, Ram. He touched his feet and offered me along with the jewel to Krishna. And he was thinking like this, we now remember that you were born during Rama's appearance and were at that time promised to him. But at that time, he refused because he had taken a vow of Ekapatni Vrata, of having only one wife. And now you have been accepted as the wife of Krishna, who has many wives. So Rukmini's prayer was that I'll perform austerities now fixed on the desire to have you. And if I can't marry you in this life, then I'll marry you. Even if it's hundreds and hundreds of lives later, it's worth it. And here we see the result of that with Jambavati and Jambavan's desire to offer her to Ram. Therefore, you are the best, Jambavan said. And hearing this, Jambavati became embarrassed and said, no. Oh, he said that to his daughter, you are the best. And Jambavati heard this and became embarrassed and said, no, I am not the best. I am only his servant. She performed, Rukmini was talking about performing austerities, and we will hear that austerities in and of themselves are simply not enough. Tatra loyam api mulam ekalam. The intensity of desire in the mood of servitude is everything. Please.
Sri Kalindi said, oh, the Lord knew that I was performing severe austerities and penances with the hope of one day touching his lotus feet. So he came to me in the company of his friend and took my hand in marriage. And now I am engaged as a sweeper in his palace.
Srila Sanatana Goswami comments, having performed austerities, you gain the qualification to be his wife. That is not so, Kalindi said. I am his low servant, the cleaner of his house. I am not qualified to be his wife.
Sri Mitravinda said, at my Swayamvara ceremony, he came forward, defeated all the kings present, including my brothers who dared insult him, and took me away just as a lion removes his prey from amidst a pack of dogs. Thus Lord Krishna, the shelter of the goddess of fortune, brought me to his capital city. May I be allowed to serve him by washing his feet, life after life.
Mitravinda was the daughter of Krishna's aunt, Radhati Devi. Her two brothers, being followers of Duryodhana, be careful of who you follow, forbid her to marry Krishna. They were the kings of Avantipur. Sanatana Goswami comments, he is the abode of Lakshmi. I am thus not qualified. Therefore, let me wash his feet in every birth. So after attaining him, not to become the queen, I am the queen, but to serve. Or he brought me to his city, the abode of Lakshmi, though I was unqualified to go there. He brought me there by his mercy. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti comments, may I take repeated births as one who washes his lotus feet. So how prominent is the mood of servitude and being unqualified in all the devotees, practically speaking, even the queens. They just want to serve. No false ego, no ahankara. Just a mood of loving Krishna and appreciating that Krishna is so kind. Look what he's given me, such a wretched soul.
Sri Satya said, my father arranged for 7 extremely powerful and vigorous bulls with deadly sharp horns to test the prowess of the kings who desired my hand in marriage. Although these bulls destroyed the pride of many heroes, Lord Krishna subdued them effortlessly, tying them up in the same way that children playfully tie up a goat's kids. He thus purchased me with his valor.
Heroism.
Then he took me away with my maidservants and a full army of four divisions, defeating all the kings who opposed him along the road. May I be granted the privilege of serving that Lord.
Srila Jiva Goswami comments, though it is said that her father wanted to test the strength of the kings, actually, he arranged the test in order to give his daughter to Krishna. Krishna tied up all the bulls immediately. After all, in Braja, he is very practiced in these things. As if play, just as children tie up baby goats. Bah. Oh, excuse me. Nah. The plural is used here since Krishna expanded himself in 7 forms to tie up 7 bulls. He'll somehow find a way, if our desire is strong, to bring us to him. Somehow or another, he expanded. Krishna paid the price of valor, of heroism, in that he observed the conditions for marriage made by her father. He surrendered to what? He didn't kidnap her. He surrendered to her father because the father was not opposed. And Srila Sanatana Goswami comments, Satya said, I am not his queen, but I am simply his servant, but I desire to serve his feet eternally. Bhadra.
Sri Bhadra said, my dear Draupadi, of his own free will, my father invited his nephew Krishna, to whom I had already dedicated my heart, and offered me to him as his bride. My father presented me to the Lord with an Akshayini military guard and a retinue of my female companions. My ultimate perfection is this, to always be allowed to touch Lord Krishna's lotus feet as I wander from life to life, bound by my karma.
Srila Jiva Goswami comments, may I be able, and interestingly enough, our acharyas point out this is the only verse in the Sanskrit where Krishna's name is mentioned directly. And Jiva Goswami comments, in the material world, in traditional societies especially, it is a fault to say the husband's name without any descriptive terms, since it shows disrespect by making him appear insignificant, and his male false ego needs to be satisfied because he needs that to do his services. To say the name of the Lord, however, is not a fault, but it is a good quality, since it indicates the Lord's greatness. Therefore, saying the Lord's name directly is a show of respect, even though superficially, culturally, it seemed as a disrespect. And she said, may I be able to touch his feet by massaging them and other services, birth after birth, as I wander about due to my karma. As part of the human pastime, she shows indifference to all other goals. She's so dedicated to serving Krishna. Her love for Krishna in this mood is so strong that it defeats all other goals that we may have. You know, the best of us may want Krishna, but some other part may want this, and some other part may want that, and some other part may want this. But when that desire to serve Krishna out of great devotion burns in our heart, it will defeat, it will extinguish all other desires. She was indifferent to all other goals. She only desired to serve Krishna in her own specific mood. She said, may I touch his feet, massaging them birth after birth as I wander about here and there by my karma, or as I am born in various bodies. I do not aspire for Vaikuntha because touching his feet is the highest for me. Actually, she had no karma. She was an eternal associate, of course. Lakshmana. Oops, go ahead.
Sri Lakshmana said, O Queen, I repeatedly heard Narada Muni glorify the appearance and activities of Achyuta, and thus my heart also became attached to that Lord. Indeed, even goddess Padmahasta chose him as her husband after careful consideration, rejecting the great demigods who rule the various planets.
Oops. Jiva Goswami says, Lakshmana then spoke. She's the eighth of the most prominent queens. She thought that other queens spoke their stories of their good fortune very briefly because of their shyness. Though the events were full of the highest bliss, she then thought that perhaps Draupadi in her own wedding were the most attractive, and being proud of those two weddings, taking advantage after the senior 7 queens, she began speaking of her own wedding in detail without restraint. She speaks the pastimes in brief in this verse and then gives details in the following verses.
My father, Vrindavana, was by nature compassionate to his daughter, and knowing how I felt for saintly lady, he arranged to fulfill my desire. Just as a fish is used as a target in your
She's speaking to Draupadi.
ceremony, O Queen, to assure that you would obtain Arjuna as your husband, so a fish was also used in my ceremony. In my case, however, it was concealed on all 4 sides, and only its reflection could be seen in a pot of water below. this, thousands of kings, expert in shooting arrows and in wielding other weapons, converged from all directions on my father's city, accompanied by their military teachers. My father properly honored each king according to his strength and seniority. Then those whose minds were fixed on me took up the bow and arrow, and one by one they tried to pierce the target in the midst of the assembly.
Let me tell you the comment on Sanatana Goswami on this. It's very important and implies so much philosophy. Sanatana Goswami says, with pride, they picked up the bow and tried to pierce the fist with great effort in the assembly in order to obtain me. They were not qualified to attain me because of their impudence. Everyone in this material world thinks that I should get this, I should get that, I should get that for me because I'm so wonderful. Half the time the mind thinks I'm so wonderful, the other half the mind thinks that I'm so terrible. The nature of the mind. They were impudent. What's a synonym for impudent? Proud, thinking they're more than they actually are, because Krishna already said, or the Acharyas commented, that that everything is meant. Everything is meant for Krishna. To give anyone anything else is wrong. Please continue.
Some of them picked up the bow, but they could not string it, and so they threw it aside in frustration. Some managed to pull the bowstring towards the tip of the bow, only to have the bowstring back and knock them to the ground. A few heroes, namely Jarasandha, Shishupal, Bhim, Bhūrijana, Karna, and the king of Ambasta, succeeded in stringing the bow, but none of them could find the target. Then Arjuna, after looking at the reflection of the fish in the water and determining its position, when he carefully shot his arrow at it, he did not pierce the target, but he merely grazed it.
I have a comment here. It's not mine, it's Sanatana Goswami's. With great concentration, Arjuna saw the fish reflected in the water, and his arrow touched the fish. Arjuna did this because he wanted to spread the glory of the Lord.
After all the arrogant kings had given up, their pride broken, the Supreme Personality of Godhead picked up the bow, easily strung it, and then fixed his arrow upon it. As the sun stood in the constellation of Abhijit, he looked at the fish in the water only once, and then pierced it with the arrow, knocking it to the ground.
Abhijit means, I'll take your microphone. This is how you get entangled.
Help.
Yes, help. Anyone could unentangle me here? And the more I try to get unentangled, the more I entangle myself. Typical. But I need help. Here, help. Yeah, you can. Whoops. I'll take that microphone. Hare Krishna. Abhijit is when the sun is at zenith, the highest point in the sky. And therefore, trying to do this was more difficult because the sun was blocking everything, the bright sun. And yet, Krishna was able to do it. easily, because he's Krishna.
Kettle drums resounded in the sky, and on earth people shouted, Jai, Jai, Jai!
People,
Jai, 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 Jai! Overjoyed, the demigods showered flowers.
keep reading.
And then I walked onto the ceremonial ground. The ankle bells on my feet gently tinkling. I was wearing new garments of the finest silk, tied with a belt, and I carried a brilliant necklace fashioned with gold and jewels. There was a shy smile on my face and a wreath of flowers in my hair.
Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur says, she described how her beauty became incomparable at that time due to her extreme joy at obtaining Krishna as her husband.
I lifted my face, which was encircled by my abundant locks and effulgent from the glow of my earrings reflected on my cheeks, and smiling coolly, I glanced about. And then, looking around at all the kings, I slowly placed the necklace on the shoulder of Murari, who had captured my heart.
So she had a pride. It appears not humble. She's like talking quite a bit in front of all the other queens. But she was proud of her relationship with Krishna. So that kind of pride is actually allowed, that I am Krishna's servant.
Just then,
How fortunate I am.
just then, there were loud sounds of conch shells and mridangas and pataha, beri, and anaka drums, as well as all other instruments. And men and women began to dance, and singers began to sing.
Jiva Goswami comments, I looked at the kings present with disdain, and then looked at Krishna with cooling, smiling glances. And with an attached heart, attached to Krishna, I placed the garland that I had made with my own hands on his shoulders.
The leading kings there.
No? Okay, go ahead, sorry.
The leading kings there could not tolerate my having chosen the Supreme Personality of Godhead, O Draupadi. Burning with lust, they became quarrelsome. The Lord then placed me on his chariot, drawn by 4 most excellent horses. Donning his armor and readying his bow saranga, he stood on the chariot, and there, on the battleground, he manifested his 4 arms.
Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur says, assuming 4 arms, Krishna held me, very frightened, with 2 arms, and he held his bow and arrows with the other. He can do as he likes. He can calm his great devotees while getting rid of the difficulties at the same time. Who's next?
Garuda drove the Lord's gold-trimmed chariot as the kings looked on. O Queen, like small animals helplessly watching a lion. The kings pursued the Lord like village dogs chasing a lion. Some kings, raising their bows, stationed themselves on the road to stop him as he passed by.
The kings with raised bows, Jiva Goswami said, were like dogs with raised tails, following a lion.
These warriors were deluged by arrows shot from the Lord's bow, Saranga. Some of the kings fell on the battlefield with severed arms, legs, and necks. The rest gave up the fight and fled. The Lord of the Yadus then entered his capital city, Kushastali, Dwarka, which is glorified in heaven and on earth. The city was elaborately decorated with flagpoles carrying banners that blocked the sun, and also with splendid archways. As the Lord entered, he appeared like the sun god, entering his abode. My father honored his friends, family, and in-laws with priceless clothing and jewelry, and with royal beds, thrones, and other furnishings. With devotion, he presented the perfectly complete Lord, with a number of maidservants bedecked with precious ornaments. Accompanying these maidservants were guards walking on foot, and others riding elephants, chariots, and horses. He also gave the Lord extremely valuable weapons.
Jiva Goswami comments, the king gave servants endowed with both the wealth of ornaments, this is what the servants had, and new youth. He gave so generously because of his devotion. Because of his devotion, it is already said that the Lord accepts even leaves if given with devotion. These presentations were like offering a lamp to the sun.
Thus, by renouncing all material association and practicing austere penances, we queens have all become personal maidservants of the self-satisfied Supreme Lord.
Now, Rohini is going to be speak. Now, this isn't the Rohini who is the mother of Balaram. This is the Rohini who is the chief of the 16,100 and other queens.
Rohini Devi, speaking for the other queens, said, after killing Bhaumasura and his followers, the Lord found us in the demon's prison and could understand that we were the daughters of the kings whom Bhoma had defeated during his conquest of the earth. The Lord set us free, and because we had been constantly meditating upon his lotus feet, the source of liberation from material entanglement, he agreed to marry us, though his every desire is already fulfilled.
In this verse, Krishna is referred to as a Achyuta, which means that he never falls down from his perfect position of full satisfaction. Yet he married 16,108 queens without falling down at all. Not because he lacked anything, but because he wanted to reciprocate with their qualification of, which is described in the last line of the words of Rohini there, because we had been constantly meditating on his lotus feet, which is the source of liberation from material entanglement. So not only is meditating on Krishna, thinking of Krishna always the result of purity, it is also the cause of purity. He agreed to marry us, although his every desire is already fulfilled. Although Krishna needs nothing. He is already Purnam, complete and full. He is the absolute truth. Yet he will reciprocate with the desires of his devotees because they are always meditating on his lotus feet, because they desire to serve him.
O saintly lady, we do not desire dominion over the earth.
Excuse me. This is what they don't desire. All these queens, they don't desire. Please continue.
We do not desire dominion over the earth, or the sovereignty of the King of Heaven, or unlimited facility for enjoyment, nor mystic power, nor the position of Lord Brahma, or immortality, or even the attainment of the kingdom of God. We simply desire to carry on our heads the glorious dust of Lord Krishna's feet, enriched by the fragrance of kumkum from his consort's breast.
Okay, read 43.
We desire the same contact with the Supreme Lord's feet that the young women of Vraj, cowherd boys, and even the Aborigine Purindis desire. The touch of the dust he leaves on the plants and the grass as he tends his cows.
Srila Sanatana Goswami comments, we do not desire a kingdom or liberation because the women of Braja, though superior to Lakshmi in good fortune, desired only his foot dust. Thus we, like them, desire only the touch of his feet as he herd cows in Vrindavan. The BBT purport comments, Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur reminds us of the jealous rivalry that always existed between the queens of Dwarka and the gopis of Braj. Rukmini and her 7 chief co-wives considered themselves so fortunate in their relationship with Krishna as he appeared in Dwarka that they did not especially desire to see him as he is in Vrindavan. But the 16,000 lesser queens, after hearing Uddhava describe Sri Radha's excellent qualities, became attracted to touch the dust that falls from Krishna's feet onto the grass and the plants in Vrindavan. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur comments, and this will end the chapter. From the day that Uddhava, and this was spoken without Krishna being present, from the day that Uddhava was talking about prema rasa, when he described the excellence of Sri Radha's form, her prema, her good fortune, her sweetness, and her ability to control Krishna, when he described this to the women of the assembly of women of queens, such a desire for Braja, prema, and service to Sri Radha awoken in their hearts. The 8 queens headed by Rukmini felt themselves satisfied with their own good fortune and their own excellence, and therefore did not develop that desire. However, that desire did arise in the 16,000 queens who were of lesser good fortune than the 8 queens. That ends the chapter, but that also brings up the question or the comment that it is difficult sometimes to see who is fortunate or more fortunate or most fortunate, because those lesser queens, in their misfortune of being lesser queens, not the prominent queens, were so fortunate because they had heard about the glories of Braja, the dust of Braja, and the glories of Sri Radha. They desired that similar dust and nothing else. And as we have heard in so many of the other cases, that desires that we have, even though they may be somewhat immature, it may take some time before they manifest. But if that desire is focused and it is real, it may take 1 birth, 2 births, or countless births, but it will manifest. Okay, that was very long, and you all did quite well. I very much appreciate your intent and intention and concentration. Just spend 5 minutes discussing. Just find someone to discuss with, and 5 minutes, please, right now. Hare Krishna. Thank you. Long, but good.
That was okay.
Yeah, it was really good, but it was just a little long, I think, for them. But
The whole thing is a little long.
the whole thing,
The whole thing is a little long.
what whole thing?
Everything about the Govardhana.
Especially for people who think they have to attend it all.
Yes. But even if they attend it and find it long,
Yeah.
the inestimable value.
Yes.
Because it's targeted home. It's not targeted.
The impression
Yes.
is
You go away
made.
and say that was hard.
Yeah.
Then you have lunch. So it's
But I also saw I also saw, and there's a day off tomorrow. I mean, a more light day. But I also saw. I looked at some other retreat, and there's this one that I saw was so popular, had 3,000 people. It's even heavier than this.
yeah.
But they pay so much that they want to get everything out of it too. So these don't pay so much compared to that. They pay like US dollars, like $2,500 for 6 days. But they start at 5 in the morning and end at 7 at night, and they only get an hour and a half for lunch. An hour and a half. No.
Exactly.
And the accommodations are separate cost.
What's his name? The Soda said, this is not a retreat, this is an advance.
Yes, he told me. His association is so much fun.
Showed me all his paintings.
And he saw the
guy on the page.
consult with Gopinath, because we didn't play any of the videos. So ask what he thinks, if we should play both, which will take another 15 minutes, or one, just the last one, or whatnot. You two decide. What do you think? Go discuss and then let me know.
I think we should play both, but again, I don't know about these people.
They seem to like, people get benefited by the videos, it seems. I've heard that. Even people whose videos aren't their thing, of AI. Okay, come to the conclusion. I think, Govinda. To play it.
No, to leave it up, because I think we covered it really well. Time's not 14 minutes.
So it would come to 1, Prasadam's at 1, so there is time. I had an idea, an angle on which to present that we're doing it, is that see what you remember from the deeper things that we spoke about from the commentaries when you hear the... Yeah, it's a review, that's what I was thinking. That's why I had this at the end.
That makes sense. Do we want to do the queen, or do you want to do the first one?
The first one was so important, but I think it was covered.
I think that's fine.
Yeah, okay, we'll do that. Thank you. Hare Krishna. Just another 20 seconds, which basically means we might as well stop now. To end this, I know it's been quite long, and you did so well in focusing, but keep in mind, that although our Govardhana retreat of Krishna Katha is quite intense, and it's from early till late, still, the impressions that we get are so worth it by the mercy of Giriraj Govardhana, the dust of Vrindavana, Srila Prabhupada, and the deities, and the Katha. So much emphasis was given on hearing. And when else in our life do we have nothing else to do except hear about Krishna? So I appreciate very much the intensity of all your desires to hear about Krishna. As an aid to remember the commentaries of the Acharyas and the depth of their commentaries and their instructions that they gave, that was so important, the instructions about being patient, but yet the desire of being so intense to serve Krishna in one way or another, whatever our desires are or will be. But that intention to advance is our great wealth. And the instructions given, despite the austerity, it's not austerity alone that will reward us with this goal. It is Krishna's mercy and the desire to serve, and gradually the desire to serve in a very specific way. And as Chaitanya Mataji had said, that I seem to be repeating, that those things that we couldn't do or even conceive of doing years before, now are naturally easy or easier. So in the mood of recapping or remembering or reviewing, please see what you can add from this next video that explains the queens and their mood and their desires, and see if you can, in your own mind, add some of the comments and the important information, not information, but instructions given by the Acharyas. And if it's all too much for you, then you can go. Okay.
In the great royal tent, empresses, queens, and princes
Louder, please.
from across the world have gathered. Among them, the illustrious ladies of the Kuru dynasty and the celebrated queens of Dwaraka, the fortunate wives of Lord Krishna. At the head of the assembly sat the noble elders, Queen Kunti and Queen Gandhari. Amid such royal splendor were also the simple cowherd women of Vrindavana, the gopis. The glorious Queen Draupadi was the first to inquire.
My dear Rukmini, Bhadra, Jampavati, Sakhya, Satyabhama, Halindi, Mithravinda, Lakshmana, Rohini, and all other wives of Lord Krishna, will you please let us know how Lord Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, accepted you as his wife and married you in pursuance of the marriage ceremonies of ordinary human beings?
My dear Draupadi, it was practically a settled fact that princes like Jarasandha wanted me to marry King Shishupala, and, as is usual, all the princes present during the marriage ceremony were prepared with their armor and weapons to fight with any rival who dared to stop the marriage. But the Supreme Personality of Godhead kidnapped me the way a lion takes away a lamb from the flock. This was not, however, a very wondrous act for Lord Krishna, because anyone who claims to be a great hero or king within this world is subordinate to the lotus feet of the Lord. All kings touch their helmets to the lotus feet of Lord Krishna. My dear Draupadi, it is my eternal desire that, life after life, I be engaged in the service of Lord Krishna, who is the reservoir of all pleasure and beauty. This is my only desire and ambition in life.
My dear Draupadi, my father was very much afflicted by the death of his brother, Prasanna, and he falsely accused Lord Krishna of killing his brother and stealing the Shamantaka jewel, which had actually been taken by Jambavana. Lord Krishna, in order to establish his pure character, fought with Jambavana and rescued the Shamantaka jewel, which he later delivered to my father. My father was very much ashamed and sorry for accusing Lord Krishna of his brother's death. After getting back the Shamantaka jewel, he thought it wise to rectify his mistake. So, although he had promised others my hand in marriage, he submitted the jewel and me at the lotus feet of Krishna, and thus I was accepted as his maidservant and wife.
When Lord Krishna attacked my father, Jambavan, the king of the bears, he did not know that Lord Krishna was his former master, Lord Ramachandra, the husband of Sita. Not knowing the identity of Lord Krishna, my father fought with him continuously for 27 days. After this period, when he became fatigued, he could understand that since no one but Lord Ramachandra could defeat him, his opponent, Lord Krishna, must be the same Lord Ramachandra. He thus came to his senses and immediately returned the Shamantaka jewel. Furthermore, to satisfy the Lord, he presented me to him to become his wife. In this way, I was married to the Lord, and thus my desire to be a servitor of Krishna, life after life, was fulfilled.
My dear Draupadi, I was engaged in great austerities and penances to get Lord Krishna as my husband. When he became aware of this fact, he very kindly came to me with his friend Arjuna and accepted me as his wife. Lord Krishna then took me away from the bank of the Yamuna, and since then I have been engaged in the house of Lord Krishna as a sweeper, and the Lord is treating me as his wife.
There was a great assembly of princes at my Swayamvara ceremony. Lord Krishna was also present in that meeting, and he accepted me as his maidservant by defeating all the princes there. He immediately took me away to Dwaraka, exactly as a lion takes its prey from a pack of dogs. When I was thus taken away by Lord Krishna, my brothers wanted to fight him, and later they were defeated. Thus my desire to become the maidservant of Krishna, life after life, was fulfilled.
My dear Draupadi, my father arranged for an assembly for my Swayamvara, and to test the strength and heroism of the prospective bridegrooms, he stipulated that they each fight with his 7 ferocious bulls, which had long, sharp horns. Many heroic prospects tried to defeat the bulls, but unfortunately, they were all severely struck, and they returned to their homes as defeated invalids. When Lord Sri Krishna came and fought with the bulls, they were just like playthings for him. He captured the bulls and roped each one of them by the nostrils. Thus they came under his control, just as a goat's small kids come very easily under the control of children. My father was very much pleased and married me to Lord Krishna with great pomp, giving as my dowry many divisions of soldiers, horses, chariots, and elephants, along with hundreds of maidservants. Thus Lord Krishna brought me to his capital city, Dwaraka. On the way back, he was assaulted by many princes, but Lord Krishna defeated all of them, and thus I had the privilege of serving his lotus feet as a maidservant.
My dear Draupadi, Lord Krishna is the son of my maternal uncle. Fortunately, I became attracted to his lotus feet. When my father understood these feelings of mine, he personally arranged for my marriage, inviting Lord Krishna to marry me and giving him in dowry 1 division of armed forces, along with many maidservants and other royal paraphernalia. I do not know whether I shall be able to have the shelter of Lord Krishna, life after life, but still I pray to the Lord that wherever I may take my birth, I may not forget my relationship with his lotus feet.
My dear Queen, from the time I heard sage Narada glorify Lord Krishna, my heart was bound to his lotus feet. My father, seeing my devotion, arranged my Swayamvara with a test unlike any other. The princes had to pierce the eye of a fish, seen only by its reflection in water. Heroes from all kingdoms tried and failed. Even mighty warriors like Jarasandha, Shishupala, Duryodhana, and Karna could not succeed. Arjuna came closest, but still missed the mark. Then Krishna stepped forward. With effortless grace, he strung the bow, glanced once at the reflection, and struck true. The fish fell, drums resounded, and the heavens showered flowers. With great joy, I slowly placed my garland around his neck. At that moment, I knew my life's desire was fulfilled, to become the maidservant of the Supreme Lord, my eternal husband. My dear Draupadi, when I placed my garland upon Lord Krishna, the princes roared in anger, but without caring for them, my lord, in his four-armed form, lifted his bow and mounted his chariot, drawn by 4 divine horses. With Daruka as driver, he carried me swiftly toward Dwaraka, exactly as a deer is carried away from the flock by a lion. The princes tried to oppose him, just as dogs try to oppose the progressive march of a lion. Yet they were powerless before Krishna's arrows. Some fell wounded, some fled, while others lost their lives. As the Supreme Lord entered the most celebrated city of Dwaraka, he shone like the rising sun. The city was filled with flags and festoons so abundant that even the sunlight could not enter. My father, overjoyed at my union with Krishna, showered gifts upon relatives and presented the Lord with treasures, soldiers, elephants, horses, and rare weapons. Though self-sufficient, he accepted them with grace. My dear Queen, at that time, I could guess that in my previous life I must have performed some wonderfully pious activity, and as a result, I can in this life be one of the maidservants in the house of the Supreme Personality of Godhead.
My dear Queen, when Palmasura was conquering the world, he collected wherever possible all the beautiful daughters of the kings and kept us arrested within his palace. When news of our imprisonment reached Lord Krishna, he fought with this cruel demon king and killed him. He released all of us, and although he did not need to accept even one wife, he nevertheless, by our request, married all 16,000 of us. My dear Queen, our only qualification was that we were always thinking of the lotus feet of Lord Krishna, which is the way to release oneself from the bondage of repeated birth and death. We are not seeking opulences such as a kingdom, an empire, a position of heavenly enjoyment, nor do we desire yogic perfections, the exalted post of Lord Brahma, or any of the various kinds of liberation. None of these opulences attracts us in the least. Our only ambition is to bear on our heads, life after life, the dust particles attached to the lotus feet of Lord Krishna as he travels on the land of Vrindavana as a cowherd boy. The gopis, especially, and also the cowherd men and the Aborigine tribeswomen, always desire to become the grass and straw on the streets of Vrindavana, to be trampled on by the lotus feet of Krishna. My dear Queen, we wish to remain as such, life after life, without any other desire.
Seeing how much the Lord's consorts loved their husband, the ladies were struck with wonder, and in that wonder they felt the sweetness of Lord Krishna's eternal presence.
Okay. Please see what you learned from this. If you can spare a few more minutes, it's almost time for prasadam, another 10 minutes. See, just turn to one of your neighbors and discuss for 9-10 minutes what points really stick in your mind, if you are able to do so. Please begin right now. And then I'll let you know when it is 1 o'clock, the exact time for prasadam. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna, Vishaka. Happy to see you.
natural question. Did the 16,000 wives got their wishes fulfilled?
It doesn't describe that, but of course, what we heard how the other queens got their wishes fulfilled, so why didn't these? So I would assume yes. They had desired, see, and also in Brihad Bhagavatamrita, the second part, Gopakumar couldn't be satisfied anywhere except when he got to Braj in his natural place where all his desires were fulfilled. So because they had that desire, they naturally couldn't be satisfied anywhere else. So I assume they ended up, even though the Acharyas don't say that, I assume they ended up in Braja as they desired. That's my answer. I assume. We can assume, because how could they be satisfied anywhere else if that was their desire? Hare Krishna. another 2 minutes only. One minute left.